Hey, what's going on, guys? It's John back with another video, and today we are going to be doing a crash course on the basics of music theory. Okay, so if this is your first time here and you haven't seen any of the videos that I've done up until now, this video is going to be for you. I'm going to start from the very beginning, and you're going to be all the way caught up and then some to where we currently are in the videos that I've been posting. If you have been following the videos that I've been posting, stick around, because as you can see on the screen, there's some things that I haven't explained yet on the channel, but I will be explaining them in this video. So there's going to be some information that's going to be useful for people who have been here and have been following my music theory series. Okay, so when we're talking about music theory is basically just a way for musicians to communicate and think about music without having their instrument in front of them. Okay, if you can theoretically understand something, then it's always easier to put it into a practical application. All right, so as many of you are aware, with music we have these things that we call notes. Okay, no matter what instrument you're playing, each one of those instruments share the same notes. There's different patterns, there's different shapes depending on what instrument you're playing, but all of those notes are the same. And universally, the easiest way for you to visualize these notes is on a piano keyboard. Okay, so as you can see, we have white notes and we have black notes. Okay, so if you go all the way to the left of the two black notes, to the far left, I have what we call twins, and we have these triplets up here. Okay, if you notice, that pattern of twins and triplets repeats on the keyboard. Okay, that means that all of these notes under that are also repeated as well. Okay, so again, if you look over here to the left of the twins, right down here, this note, we call that first one C. And if you've noticed, we're using letters from the alphabet. Okay, we're only using the first 7: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so this first note we're going to call C. It's to the left of the twins. The next note in sequential order is going to be D, then E, F, G. And remember, we stop at G, and now because we haven't used A or B, we're going to start over. Then we get A, B, and we end back up on C, right here again next to the twins. Okay, as you can also see, the black notes are labeled twice. Okay, the black notes, as you can see, are pitches that fall in between any two given white notes. Okay, there's a black note in between, there's a black note in between there, and there's a black note in between all of those notes. Okay, now the hashtag looking symbol is what we call a sharp. Okay, and when you see a sharp, it's telling you to raise the pitch of that note by 1. Okay, so if you look up here, we have a C sharp. That's telling us to find the note C and raise it by 1 pitch to this black note. And that's how we get C sharp. Okay, the small little B that you see next to the D right in there is called a flat symbol. Okay, this means to lower a note by 1. Okay, so using that concept, if this note is going to be a D flat, well, we can reverse engineer this. If we start on D and lower it by 1 note, we arrive at that same black note. Okay, so that means that every black key on the keyboard has 2 names. Okay, it can be either sharp or flat, but the concept of sharp or flat is not mutually exclusive to those black notes, as white keys in certain situations can also be named sharp or flat. Okay, as an example, if I wanted to take the note C and lower it by 1, you would arrive at a B, which is correct. But because of where I started from C, and I'm altering the note C, I would call it C flat. Okay, C flat is the same as the note B. The opposite is also true. If I were to start on B and raise it by 1 note, because remember, there's no note in between here, so the very next note is going to be that C. If I wanted to raise it by 1, still using the naming scheme of the B, that note would then be called a B sharp. B sharp and C are the same note. This phenomenon is called inharmonic equivalence. Okay, inharmonic equivalence is when you arrive at a note that sounds the same but has 2 different names. Okay, C sharp and D flat are the exact same pitch. Okay, but in certain situations you would call it a C sharp, and in certain situations you would call it a D flat. Now that we know the names of the notes on our keyboards, let's try to measure some distance. Okay, so if you look down at the very bottom, I have an interval ruler that I built for you guys, and I'm going to see if I can have these PDFs for you guys so you can have it for your own uses. Okay, so this is what I call my interval ruler. Okay, and basically, if you can think about these 12 notes, this whole little section right here of 12 notes, if we can think about how to measure distance between those notes, then we can start figuring out the relationships between those notes and how they sound against each other. Okay, because that's all music is. Whenever you're playing music, you're playing all these different notes either together or in succession of each other, and what creates that sound, distinct sounds, is intervals. Okay, the distances between those notes. Okay, so I'm going to use C as an example, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out my interval ruler just like how I filled out the keyboard up there. Any notes that are considered sharp or flat, for the purposes of this, I'm going to only write sharp. Okay, so I'm going to start down here at the very bottom, and I'm going to write the note C. I'm going to go to the very next note, in this case, which would be a C sharp, then a D, and a D sharp, and so on and so forth until I filled out the keyboard. Okay, so as you can see, my interval ruler is starting with the note C. And the reason why I left those blank was because we can actually put any starting note at the beginning of the ruler, and all of these concepts are going to be the same. C just happens to be the easiest to look at. Okay, and what I'm going to do as a visual representation is I'm going to highlight the sharp notes so that you guys can see the piano pattern. Okay, as you can see right here, I have my twins, and here I have my triplets. Okay, just so that you guys can see that visually represented. Okay, right down here at the bottom, I have some different names. These are the names for our intervals. Okay, let's only start with the basic intervals that are in the blue section of the ruler. Okay, as you can see right down there at the bottom left, when we start on C, there's a symbol that says PU. Okay, that stands for perfect unison. Okay, and all the names that are on the tops of the notes are simply the interval name. Okay, and we're going to go through all the rest of those right now. Okay, unison just basically means that your note has not moved. There's certain instruments that can play the same note within that same pitch range, like a guitar or a bass, depending on how you have it tuned. But on a piano, no two pitches will ever be the same. Each pitch is going to be different, whether it be higher in pitch or lower in pitch. Where we're not going to have a perfect unison on a keyboard. Okay, the next one that you see has a lowercase m. That lowercase m stands for minor. Okay, next to that you see a capital M, and that capital M stands for major. Okay, and if you move further up, you'll see P4 and P5 right here, which stands for perfect fourth and perfect fifth. So same as a perfect unison, they share that name, perfect. Okay, then we run into this one here that says A4 D5. Okay, the A stands for augmented and the D stands for diminished. Now, if we look at our keyboard and we look at our interval ruler, what you can start to see is the distances between all of these different notes. Okay, so I'm going to change my highlighter color here just so you guys can see a difference. So let's take, for example, the distance from C to C sharp. The difference from C to C sharp is a minor second. Okay, and it's the distance between two notes. Well, what about the distance between C and D? You get a major second, and that is the difference between three notes, as you can see. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, Using this concept, we can continue on with the interval ruler and figure out all of these different intervals. Okay, so C to C sharp is a minor second, C to D is a major second, C to D sharp is a minor third, C to E is a major third, and so on and so forth. This ruler will tell you that information. Okay, now why is this important? Well, it's important because there's going to be certain things in music that require you to understand those distances at a moment's notice. Okay, as you can see, using this interval ruler, we can plug in any set of notes and instantly know the distance between them. Okay, now if you move to the orange section, this one's a little bit more advanced, but if you continue with that same line of thought, we continue the ruler and make it longer. We stop over here at 13th, and the reason why we stop at 13th is because when you get into playing chords, that's the highest extension of a chord that you can have is a 13th. Okay, so all the way from this C down here, moving all the way up to this G sharp over here on your keyboard, which would be from this C all the way to this G sharp, that interval is considered a major 13th. And any interval that is beyond a perfect eighth is considered a compound interval. Okay, because now we're just doubling up on the notes that we've already passed through. As you can see, minor second and a minor nine are the same thing, except the minor ninth is just an octave higher. Okay, but remember, the distance is what matters. Okay, playing the note C to C sharp this close together will give you a very harsh sound, but if you put space in between it, and instead of playing the C sharp directly next to it, you play the C sharp an octave higher to play a minor nine, the sound is opened up much more because there's a longer distance that's traveled. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, with that information, we can move on to the monstrosity on the right hand side of the screen. And this is what we're going to end the video out with, because I think that there's a lot of information here that you guys can take and start using. Okay, it is called the circle of fifths. Okay, and from its name, what we are doing is we're taking all of the notes of the keyboard and we're arranging them in this circle, but we're arranging them in such a way where they are in fifths of each other. Okay, intervals of a perfect fifth. So we already have our interval ruler at the very bottom of the screen, and let's double check ourselves. So looking at the circle of fifth, the first note that we have at the top of the circle is going to be a C. Okay, so the next note needs to be a fifth away. Well, let's hop down to our interval ruler, and let's find a perfect fifth. If we start from C and move over to P5, we get G. And as you can see, G is the next note. And for clarity's sake, just to show you guys that the interval ruler can come in very handy, I'm going to just write out all the notes starting with G first this time so that we can double check ourselves and make sure that our circle of fifths is correct. Okay, I'm only going to go through the basic interval just because for the sake of the example. Okay, so now if we're starting on the note G and we go to our P5 column, we have a D. Perfect. So this concept continues across the entire circle of fifths. Okay, we start on C, we go around the circle, and we stop on the note F sharp or G flat, depending on how you want to look at it. Okay, then what we do is we go back to the top of the circle and we go back to C. And to get the second half of the circle, what we're going to do is we're going to then count in fourths. Okay, so for the sake of the example, I'm only going to do one this time. I'm going to do it back in the key of C. So using that concept, moving counterclockwise around the circle to build the other half, what we're going to do is start from C and then count the interval of a perfect fourth. So if you use the interval ruler, you start down at C and you move over to P4, you get F. Okay, and that continues through the rest of the circle of fifths until we get back down here, okay, at the F sharp or the G flat. Now our entire circle is built. Okay, now the outside of the circle has numbers. Okay, you see it has 0, and F has 1 with a flat symbol next to it, and G has a 1 with a sharp next to it. Okay, and this pattern continues across the entire circle of the circle of fifths. What this is telling us is that in the key of C, okay, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard that concept before. If you've heard that before, something in the key of something. What all that means is that whatever song we're playing, C is going to be our home chord, okay? And there's certain notes that are within the key of C that we can utilize to make the song sound cohesive and make it sound like C is the center point, okay? So when you're looking at the actual letters around the circle of fifths, think of them as keys, okay? Not physical keys like on the keyboard, but keys of a song, okay? So the key of C has 0 sharps and 0 flats, okay? If you go to the key of G has 1 sharp in it, as you can see. Moving up the circle, the key of D has 2, A has 3 sharps, E has 4 sharps, B has 5 sharps, and the key of F sharp has 6 sharps. Moving the other way around the circle, the key of F has 1 flat, key of B flat has 2 flats, E flat has 3, A flat has 4, D flat has 5, and G flat has 6 flats. Okay? Why is this important? Well, some of you may be wondering, why would he tell me everything about keys, but I don't know what notes are in what key? Well, we're going to start with C, okay? And what I want you to do is get out a pen and paper and just simply write from letter to letter, okay? So we're going to start with C first. We're going to go with C and just write from C through our musical alphabet to the next C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This collection of notes is what we call our C major scale, okay? In the key of C, these are the notes that you are going to use to construct chords and melodies, okay? The key of C has no sharps and no flats, as you can see. Let's do it with G. I'm going to write the letters out from G to G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The key of G has 1 sharp in it, okay? But how do I know which note to sharp? If you look in the middle of the circle of fifths, I have an order of sharps with an arrow pointing to the right and an order of flats with an arrow pointing to the left, okay? If you guys are catching on, the notes in the center are just my circle of fifths starting from F, okay? If I go to my circle of fifths up here and I start from F, you get F, C, G, D, A, E, and B, okay? That is what we call the order of sharps, where you're moving to the right-hand side, okay? Now, obviously, order of sharps isn't going to help us on the flat side of the circle, right? So what do? Well, we flip it around. If you move to the left, you get your order of flats, okay? Same thing on the circle of fifths. If you start on B and move backwards all the way down to F, you get our order of flats, okay? So the order of sharps and the order of flats tells us which notes to sharp and which notes to flat in our keys, okay? So if you've already written out your alphabet from G to G, only using the musical alphabet, of course, let's go on ahead and use the circle of fifths to build our G major scale, okay? Right now we have the shell, okay? We have the shell for our scale right here. And you can do this for every single one of the 12 notes, okay? Now what we're going to do is go to our circle of fifths. It says that it has 1 sharp. What is the first sharp in our order of sharps? Well, that note happens to be F. So that means that we sharp our F. And if you were to play this collection of notes, you would then have your G major scale, okay? And you can always check yourself with C major as a reference point. Play your C major scale and then play the G major scale and hear if they sound similar or not, okay? That same concept can be used to create the rest of your scales. I'm going to do 1 flat key just for the sake of example for this video. And in this case, we're going to do one with multiple flats. Let's choose E flat, okay? So what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to write out my notes from E to E, okay? E to E. Now, we're looking at the key of E flat. So we already know that E has to be flat, right? So let's go ahead and do that, okay? The key of E flat has 3 flats in it, okay? We've already taken care of the first one over here. We already have E flat. So now we just need 2. But how do we know which ones? Well, let's use our order of flats. If we move backwards, we just need to count the first 3 flats, which are B flat, E flat, which we already have because the way that the scale is named is derived its name from E flat. And we have A. So now what we need to do is in our scale, we need to flat the notes B and A. And now if you play this collection of notes, you're going to have your E flat major scale. Now, if those of you who might be confused, you say, hey, circle of fifths says 3 flats in the key of E flat, but you've highlighted 4, okay? Notes that repeat themselves within the scale are only still counted as 1, okay? So this E flat and this E flat count as one of those 3 flats, okay? I want you guys to understand that concept. E flat and E flat counts as 1. Then A counts as 1 and B counts as 1. So looking at our circle of fifths, we've looked at the key centers right around here. And we've also looked at the sharps and flats that consist of those different keys. But what about this middle section, right? Okay. This middle section is the relative minor of our major keys. Okay. What is a relative minor? Okay. A relative minor is just simply a subset or an additional scale that can be found within the associated key. Okay. So the key of C has 0 sharps and 0 flats. Well, if you were to play the A minor scale, it would also have 0 sharps and 0 flats. Okay. And the easiest way that you at a glance can come to your relative minor, the way that if you want to build this circle yourself from scratch, what you want to do is on your circle of fifths, if you count up 4 letters, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get your relative minor of that key. Okay. If I started on G, 1, 2, 3, 4, and look, E is my relative minor. Okay. The relative minor key is a key that shares the same notes. As an example, if I start on C and write out my C scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, my A minor scale is going to be that same collection of notes, but starting on A. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. This is my C major scale, and this is my A minor scale. But they both share the same notes, okay? I'm just starting on a different note, okay? This is actually something that's called a mode. We won't get into that in this video, but basically you can start, you can use any of the notes in the key of C and start from those notes and only use the notes within the key of C and create different scales, okay? And those subset of scales are what we call modes. Relative minor, or in this case, A minor, is just a subset of C major, okay? It's a scale that comes from C major, okay? If you didn't understand that, don't worry about it. There's going to be videos coming later on about modes and subset scales and stuff like that. But in this video, that's all that I wanted to do for you guys today. I'm sorry if it was a little bit lengthy, but this video is to catch you guys up on everything. If you want to have this PDF, I'm going to have it down there in the description box down below so that you can actually use this, write out your intervals yourself on your interval ruler down there, and you can start practicing and going through some of your theory. And then if you want to build your circle of fifths yourself, again, just use the same concepts that we use in this video. We start building it in fifths, moving clockwise, you move in fifths, and then you stop at the very bottom. Then to get the second half of your circle, you count in fourths, okay? And everything that you need to build this circle of fifths is actually right here in this PDF. Your interval ruler that tells you your intervals. As long as you start whatever starting note you start on down here in your interval ruler, as long as you put every single note in succession, then this is going to be accurate, okay? Don't skip any notes and you'll be perfectly fine to use this ruler, okay? But that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section down below. If you like this video, if it helped you out, be sure to share it. Until the next one, guys, have a good one.